So the next thing we have on our program is the chairperson opening remark. I would like to hear from our chairperson, Engineer Abdul Wahid Kemi Mustafa, for his remark as we start our program. Thank you, Engineer Mustafa.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Adewale. Can you hear me? Just can you confirm if you can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear.
All right. Okay. Just a minute. I'm going to be putting on my video in a while. Okay. Okay. Can you confirm you can see me also? Okay. So, good morning, because we will have some people in morning, afternoon, evening, to everyone, distinguished guests, esteemed industry colleagues who are here, students, faculties, and of course, we definitely have friends in the house. It is definitely an honor and a privilege to welcome everyone to today's 30th IPAA Alumni Lecture Series. And of course, being hosted by the Industrial and Production Engineering Department of the prestigious University of Ibadan. And as usual, this is not my first event. This event reflects the university's commitment to fostering a vibrant intellectual community where ideas are exchanged, different perspectives are challenged, and of course, for what the university is known for, knowledge is advanced through this series, and of course, this particular lecture series is definitely a vital one in meeting the university's mission, providing that platform for dialogue that bridges the academic and the broader community, particularly on this topic, this critical topic regarding flooding. As you may know, flooding is a global issue, and it does have far-reaching consequences. It impact life, economies, ecosystems, and as we face increasing uncertainty, particularly driven by the climate change, urbanization, and environmental degradation, by action of men. It's important that understanding, having deep understanding of these issues will help us in mitigating this flood risk, and this is not even at this time, it's even more crucial to have this discussion. I mean, making a reference to Ibadan as a base, Ibadan has experienced flooding, severally in the past, over 45 years to 50 years ago. And the most recent one that most of us will remember, even while we were at the university, the 2011 event of flooding event, even affected the University of Ibadan. That was perhaps the worst flooding that we've had, in the history of the ancient city of Ibadan. And of course, if you use the word omiyale, that word literally came from, several of the flooding events that has happened in the ancient city of Ibadan. So this is also very important to where the university is, and also the broader community where we are from. Today we are fortunate that one of us, an expert, Dr. Taiwo Adedeji, is an expert in this field. And of course, his research work has shaped policies and practices, particularly in the UK. His expertise and insights promises to, help us illuminate the complexity around this topic, and of course, inspire us to take, actionable strategies that we can implement in our community to ensure that we can build resilience and then ensure that sustainability is factored into the design of how we manage such issues. It will guide us through, sharing valuable insights on how we can use this issue to build safeguard for our future. Let me use this opportunity to thank the hard work and dedication of everyone who made this event possible. The organizing committee, faculty, staffs, and of course, the involvement of students and alumni in this. You have together created an environment where this meaningful conversation can flourish. Without this platform, we cannot gather here today. And of course, I want to thank each and every one of you for taking time out, out of your busy schedule. Your presence definitely underscores our shared commitment to addressing, our societal challenges that demand collaborative solutions and, of course, innovative thinking. As we listen to this lecture, please let's reflect on the ideas that is going to be presented today. Let us remember that the power of dialogue, innovation, and collaboration will only help us shape our future better. So please, I encourage you to actively listen, participate in the discussion, and of course, share your thought during the question and answer session that we're going to have today. So once again, I extend a warm welcome to you all. Thank you for being here and for your continued support in making our university a hub of knowledge and inspiration. So without further ado, I welcome our distinguished speaker, Dr. Taiwo Adedeji. Please join me in giving him a warm round of virtual applause. That will be great to usher our distinguished speaker, Dr. Taiwo Adedeji, in. You're welcome, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Engineer Mustafa, the chairperson of the day. Thank you, everyone. Before we go into the lecture, we still have other things. And one of the things we need to do is the goodwill message from our special guest of honor. Our special guest of honor today, like I said earlier, is Professor David Provert, who is the associate pro-vice chancellor, enterprise and business innovation at the De Montfort University in the United Kingdom. And of course, he's a real expert, well-versed and real experienced in flood risk management. His expertise is also in flood risk management, and he has published a lot of work in this aspect. And of course, he's been a long friend of our department and of course, the flood flood experts group. While we welcome you to our midst today, Professor David, we would like you to give your goodwill message before the lecture starts. You are welcome, sir.
Thank you, Elise, and good evening, everybody. Hope everybody's well on this Friday evening. It's an honour and a privilege to be here celebrating this 30th alumni event for the Industrial and Production Engineering Department. Really privileged to have the opportunity to support and send my best wishes to everybody in the school, but particularly to Dr. Taiwo Adedeji, who I had the privilege of being Taiwo's PhD supervisor. So I'm really looking forward to Taiwo's presentation this evening. As you know, flooding is a global issue, really presenting significant issues for many countries around the world, including here in the UK, where, just to give you perhaps some insight in the UK sort of context, we've been investing billions of pounds into our flood defences and flood infrastructure over the last sort of 100 years or so, and even despite that, the latest flood risk assessment carried out for England demonstrated there was a significant increase in the number of residential properties that are at risk of flooding. So it seems that despite even in a developed country like the UK, despite all the investment, despite all the infrastructure we're putting in place around the flood risk management, the pace of change, the pace of climate change, I guess, is far-reaching, and there's clearly a huge amount still to be done. I'd also like to take the opportunity perhaps to reflect on my warm relationship with Ibadan University, in particular with the School of Industrial and Production Engineering, Professor Ola Duncan. I was delighted to be able to host Victor on a visit to the UK, and we were starting to form our sort of collaborations. I think that was about eight years ago now, and since then, we've done lots of interesting collaborations and research activities, including obviously joint publications. We've produced an edited book on flood risk management in developing countries, which I think is a really significant contribution, and really, I think, helped to sort of develop that collective understanding of how we can look at tackling these issues from with all the other sort of challenges in these kind of regions. We've guest edited special issues. Obviously, we've welcomed Olise in terms of other staff and student exchanges, and obviously, in addition to Tayu as a PhD student coming to the UK, we now have Ezekiel with us, also doing some really important work funded by the government here in the UK, looking at flood risk management issues, and particularly looking at some of the community aspects of that in community engagement. So I think it's a great honour and privilege to be here this evening, and give some reflection and recognition of our sort of strong partnership that we've developed between the Ibadan University and ourselves here. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to Tayu's contribution. Tayu's done a lot of work in this area, and actually the impact of Tayu's work in the UK, I think Olise mentioned that at the start. It shouldn't be underestimated, because some of his thinking, some of the intellectual understanding that was developed, particularly around how we deal with flooding at the property level, how we can make our homes more resilient to flooding, recognizing that these events are going to take place, was significantly impactful, and actually was part, I think, of some of the the influence that sort of developed the policy and the strategies around property and flood resilience here in the UK. So I'm really looking forward to Tayu's presentation tonight. I'm sure it's going to be very illuminating, very, very interesting from very different perspectives. And I guess, particularly, from a School of Industrial and Production Engineering, I think we'll see not only the engineering perspective that Tayu can bring to this subject, but also recognising this is very much an interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary subject. We need all the collective expertise to come together to fresh out some really creative solutions in how we can deal with these kind of issues moving forward. So I'll leave it there, and very much looking forward to the presentation and some discussions. And again, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for everybody involved with organising these events, and particularly tonight's event. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor David Trovers. Next on our program is the goodwill message from our guest of honor, Lord Engineer Dr. Isaac Olanipekun, who is the Principal Consultant of Ultimate Health Care in the United Kingdom. You are welcome, sir. Engineer Isaac Olanipekun.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. I hope you all can hear me. Well done. That's good. It's a big pleasure for me to be here with you guys. It's an opportunity that I cannot undervalue or underrate it. So it's really good. Thank you very much indeed for the honor and for allowing me to join this this body, the academia. The role of academia is we learn and hopefully we apply our knowledge onto the environmental solutions. So it's a privilege. So the Industrial and Production Engineering Department have had a little bit of input, and I look for more. And for the work you are doing, the department, the management team, and the leadership. Well done. And it's a privilege to be part of your input into the society. The organizers of the Alumni Association, I cannot clap enough for you, commending your effort, and as well as the associate, the students, those who form the Alumni Association. Well done. The journey is still far. We are all in the same profession, and we are here to encourage, to share ideas, and you see, networking. So well done for all that you are doing and all that will come up as we progress further. Allow me again to mention the lecturing staff. Well done for all your effort. It's been good. I know a number of you. Maybe I should know more, and I look for more opportunities of knowing more of you. And the industrial partners, as well as the collaborating UK universities, Professor David Proverbs. It's good listening to you. Well done. Thank you for all the effort and all your input in the life of these young individuals, professionals. Well done. And allow me to mention in names, distinguished guests. Professor David, allow me to keep on mentioning your name. Professor Victor Ladokun, your efforts, well done. Similarly, Dr. Olusheye Adebimpe, well done. Congratulations in all kinds. And it's good that we are making progress together. The Mustafas, Engineer Mustafa, Abduwai, Kemi, and Fatima, well done. Thank you for all your input. It's good to recognize you all. And Engineer Oladone Okwade, I think I know her, And forgive me if I miss anybody out. You are all recognized. You are distinguished. And thank you for all that you are doing. Let me turn to Dr. Taiwo Sheung Adedeji. I put just a few statements together, and I hope it really meets my commendation of you and the recognition that you are really bringing forward your effort over the years. This is what I put down. Dr. Taiwo Sheung Adedeji came to my limelight. He came into my catchment, I said, a few years back. He was introduced to me on the corridor of your department, just briefly. And soon afterwards, he came to Britain to embark on his doctoral study at UCE. From the first day when he arrived in the UK, well, I won't be too intrusive in telling you how we gelled almost immediately. He stayed with us. And in spite of all the challenges and the various challenges, Yoruba used to say, "Ilo Yebodara," forgive me, Professor Jacob. He said, "Ilo Yebodara, but Oremi Wakawe, Otutupo." And he endured all this hardship, all the environmental hostility. He endured it. And a few years afterwards, it was a pleasure to attend his graduation at Symphony Hall, Birmingham. Well done. Really, really good. I can boldly commend his effort, his tenacity, his resilience, again, in hard work. I visited him a few occasions in Birmingham, and he endured all these things. And it was, again, a good effort on his part. So once again, let me congratulate you, your wife, and your 2 children for the effort that you put in. And what a recognition tonight. And I can't wait to listen to you as you narrate to us your findings, your research work on the risk management. Flooding, Professor Jacob just mentioned it. It's a global phenomenon. It's dynamic. It's unpredictable. And Nigeria is not an exception. I used to work in Kainji Dam, and I don't know the situation there. Jeba Power Station, hydro power stations. We had a number of them in Nigeria. Flooding. And if you go beyond that, I think you heard recently in Lagos of a bridge collapsing. Why? the flood will be part of the factors, influencing factor. Let's go to our kitchen. We could have flood if the plumbing is not done properly, if the design is poor, is blockage. And on a global vision, you see how do we manage our waste, the waste management, the effect it will have, and the global warming. Yeah, Professor Prova just mentioned it. Global warming, climate change is a big thing. So it's something that is closely affects ordinary individuals. It's not Nigeria alone. It's a global phenomenon. In China recently, in Asia, you see it, all these things happening. And tonight, as we listen to you, the risk, the implication of ignoring it. So risk assessment and risk management is important. I really congratulate you once again, Sheung, for the effort you have put into looking into this. How do we mitigate? How do we minimize? How do we? It's a flood, it's a natural phenomenon. Unpredictability of it, yeah, dynamic. Yeah, it can happen anytime. So I look forward to it. So congratulations to all, yeah, Industrial and Production Engineering Alumni Association. And long may you continue to progress. You will become, well, allow me to say it as if I have the authority to say that you will become a beacon of practice for Nigerian universities, and that you will extend beyond your local community. Well done to you all, and I look forward for more participation with you. So I can only, in my own local way, in my own identity, clap for you all for the effort you are putting. So
thank you.
Sheung, we are looking forward to seeing you. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah.
Thank you, our guest of honor. Without wasting time, we would like to read the citation of our guest speaker, Dr. Taiwo Adedeji, and that will be taken by Engineer Fatima Mustafa. Engineer Fatima Mustafa, it's time to read the citation of our guest speaker. Thank you very much, ma'am.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Share. Okay. Can you confirm you can see my screen?
Yeah, we have your screen. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Before I start that, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, everyone, depending on where you're joining us from. I hope everyone has had a very productive week. I'm sure I have. As the moderator said, I'm Fatima, and I'm super excited to be here today and also have the privilege to read the citation of someone I really respect, someone pretty special to me. He's an amazing person. He's not just a friend. He's a brother. He's also someone I really look up to, and I do call him my prof, just because of how much I respect him. He's Dr. Taiwo Adedeji, as several people have mentioned on this call. He's a lecturer at the Department of Design, Manufacturing and Engineering Management at University of Strathclyde in Glasgow. He's a dedicated academic with strong interdisciplinary background in industrial engineering, flood risk management, and business operations. He's earned his bachelor's and master's degree in industrial and production engineering from the prestigious our very own University of Ibadan, graduating with first-class honors and distinction, respectively. He later obtained his PhD in flood risk management from Birmingham City University in the UK, where his research focused on developing a framework to help property owners access and improve their flood resilience. He has over 9 years of teaching experience, during which he has held various roles in higher education, demonstrating a commitment to innovative learning and research-led teaching. His current role as a lecturer at the University of Strathclyde in Glasgow involves leading modules on lean and green logistics while supporting multiple courses in engineering principles, risk management, operations management, and sustainability. He's passionate about engaging students in collaborative learning, where he employs case studies, group exercises, and interactive technologies to create an inclusive and dynamic classroom environment. He also supervises both undergraduate and postgraduate research projects and also industry-based projects. Prior to this, he held teaching positions at South and City College, Birmingham, where he was instrumental in improving student outcomes, with many achieving distinction grades under his mentorship, and also a visiting tutor at the Birmingham City University in the UK. Beyond teaching, Dr. Adedeji is deeply invested in student mentorship, curriculum development, and capacity building. He has served as a math and sciences mentor, supporting students preparing for the General Certificate of Secondary Education, GCSE, and A-level examinations, with notable improvements in their academic performance. His dedication to student development extends to his role as a postgraduate research coordinator, where he has guided students in developing independent research skills and methodologies. Dr. Adedeji's research expertise lies in flood risk management, property-level flood resilience, and supply chain resilience. His work has been published in top-tier journals, presented at international conferences, and integrated into industry collaborations. He has collaborated with some key flood risk management stakeholders in the UK, like the Environment Agency EA, National Flood Forum, and the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors. As a reviewer for the International Journal of Building Pathology and Adaptation and the International Conference of Engineering Design, he actively contributes to advancing research in his field. He is well committed to advancing research in flood risk management and dedicated to helping communities respond and adapt to climate change. He's a fellow member of the Higher Education Academy, FHEA, and an active member of the Association of Project Management, and remains committed to helping communities and businesses strengthen their resilience against environmental and operational risks. Without taking too much of your time, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce our distinguished speaker, Dr. Taiwo Adedeji. Pass it over to you, my dear friend. You've got the floor.
Thank you so much, Fatima. I think you really did justice to the citation. First and foremost, let me just say good evening to everyone, and thank you for being here today at the 30th Industrial Production Engineering Alumni Lecture. So for me, it's truly an honor for me to be here, pleased to stand and then speak to you about topic that really feels so dear to me, flood risk management. But before I go into today's lecture, I think I'm saying some names that have really impacted my life. Because I can't say this is what I am now without my lecturers in the Department of Industrial and Production Engineering. So you've really done a lot to mold me to who I have become now. And I want to use this opportunity to say thank you for your contribution. Thank you for your commitment. Thank you for your investment in me. And yeah. And I also want to also use this opportunity to thank Professor Victor Oladogun. I can't just thank you enough for all that you've done. And also Professor David Proverbs, who is my PhD supervisor. Thank you also for your mentorship. Engineer Olanipekun, thank you so much for making life very easy for me when I came to the UK. And so just to make everything brief, I'll just say thank you to everyone, and please pardon me if I don't mention your name. All right, so I think I should share my slide at this point. So can we all see my slide?
Yeah, we can see your slides.
Okay, thank you. So once again, good evening, everyone. And for me, it's truly an honor to stand here as we look into what I believe is a pressing issue and also a question that affects millions of lives and also infrastructures. So the question of how much risk are we willing to accept in a flood-prone world? Now we often talk about floods in numbers, right? We talk about millimeters of rainfall, billions or millions of damages. We talk about displacement statistics. But today, what I really want us to think, I want us to think differently. I want us to explore risk, not just as an abstract concept, right? But as a choice that we all make, whether consciously or unconsciously. And risk is something that is unavoidable, is an unavoidable part of life. And it's something that we perceive, and then how we perceive and then how we manage risk really matters. So the question is, do we prepare or do we adapt? Or do we just simply hope for the best and accept the consequences? So some people might argue that we should simply adapt and rebuild. That's fine. While others might call for radical changes in policies, in infrastructure. But for me, I think there is a middle ground between either adapting or going for radical change. But the key question is, how do we strike that balance between economic viability? We also want to be responsible to our environment and also human safety, which is key. So in this lecture, I'm going to try to explore these pressing issues. We're going to examine the evolving landscape of flood risk management. We're going to look at the role of property resilience and the steps we can take both individually and collectively to mitigate the impact of future flood. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try as much as possible to make this lecture engaging. So at some point, I'm going to be calling for your feedback. All right, so I'd like to start with some riddles. All right, so I'm going to put some question on the screen, and then I would probably require your answer. So you can type the answer in the chat. So the first one is, I can be slow or I can be fast. I cover the land but never last. You may prepare but can't control. Too much of me, I will take my toll. So what do you think am I? Okay, some interesting answer. Okay, fantastic. So flawed. That's what I am. So let's take another one. I hold the water tall and strong. But if I break, things go wrong. Built by humans, made of clay or stone. Without me, the flood will roam. So what am I? Okay. Okay. Seems like turn it down. And then the last one. I guide the flood, but not the rain. I stop destruction and ease the pain. A city's best friend when waters rise. Without me, disaster lies. What am I? Okay. Fantastic. I think some of us should get a trophy. So interesting. So that's a drainage system. So all of these things are some of the things that are key to flood risk management. All right. So just going to share some pictures, some interesting pictures, which also relates to flood management. So the first one I'd like to share is what I call swimming pool in disguise. Now in this picture, so what really looks like a regular street during dry season, all right, in Nigeria, until you realize it's actually a river in disguise. So if you ever wonder why the yellow keke should come with flotation device, then this is your answer. All right, because you can imagine how will people in the keke come down without getting wet. All right. So this is another situation where, well, what doesn't kill you definitely makes you stronger. So you can see those group of people keeping calm and then feeling relaxed. So what I think about this picture is looking at some folks that have mastered the art of keeping calm and carrying on. Even in the midst of waterlogged compound, no problem. So all they just need to do is grab a plastic chair, relax, and then you see the woman watching the kids play. So in this case, who needs a swimming pool when you have a nature's unwanted gift? Then another one, you can see kids having some nice time. So this is what I call resilient parenting. But again, it's not advisable for those of us who have children to try this at home. So I'm putting out some disclaimer out. If you try it, my hands are off. So this is what I call resilient parenting. So why let a little flood ruin your dinner time? All you just need to do is flip a table, up on it, and make the best of it. And that's what those kids that's what they are doing. And you can see that they are having the best time of their life. Then this is another interesting one, and this is my favorite. So you can see the particular sign says this is Water Street, and that is well named. Right above a stop sign, completely submerged. So I think what they should have done is they should have put that sign probably maybe a little bit lower. At least then people would have gotten the warning sign. And then the final one, floating furnitures. So this is exactly what happens when your living room decides to turn into an indoor pool. All right. So before I go into the lecture proper, so I have a short, more like short survey that I would like you to complete, and then, so all you just need to do is scan the QR code, and then it's going to take you to the survey. So the purpose of the survey is, because for me, I graduated from industrial and production engineering, my first degree, and then my master's. And so one of the things I wasn't really familiar about was flood risk. All right. I never see flood risk as a major problem until I started undertaking research in flood risk. That's when I really realized how big a problem it is. So the purpose of this survey is just to check your level of awareness, your understanding of flood risk. So there are, I think, 4 or 5 simple questions. So all you just need to do is, maybe I'll give you like 30 seconds to 1 minute to scan the code, and then okay. Wow, interesting. So a lot of us have experienced flooding. That's, so how often do you think your area is at the risk of flooding? Okay. Occasionally. So have you or anyone you know been affected by floods? I know a couple of people who have been affected by flood, and I think I myself have been affected. Okay, it's interesting. So that means majority of us we've been directly affected by flooding. So if you think about what the cause of flood is, what would you say is the primary cause of flood? Okay, poor drainage. I know in Nigeria we experience heavy downpour. We don't really have a heavy downpour in England, so it's more like drizzling rainfall. So okay, seems like most of what we have here is man-made cause of flood, poor town planning, poor environment maintenance, unpredictable rainfall. Okay, I think we've got one more question. So I think this is obvious answer. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to stop this and then go back to my slides. Okay. So how do I find myself in flood risk research? I know when I was a kid, am I still on?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. I just want to be sure that I'm not speaking to myself. Yeah. Just a minute. Yeah. Okay, so how did I find myself in flood risk research? So I remember when I was a kid, like many children, I dreamt of becoming a doctor, a medical doctor. But as I grew older, I realized that the kind of doctor I really wanted to be wasn't a medical one. Basically because I don't like seeing blood. So I realized if I go for medical doctor, then I've chosen the wrong profession. So the kind of doctor I wanted to be is the one that is earned through research and discovery. So which means I wanted to pursue a PhD. Now, funny enough, flood risk wasn't something I ever thought of while I was growing up. It wasn't my childhood passion, and honestly, it wasn't even on my radar. However, everything changed after my MSc when Professor Oladokun shared a PhD opportunity with me on flood risk. So at first, I just wanted to put together a solid proposal for that PhD. I want to put together something convincing enough to at least to increase my chances of getting accepted. Not that I'm 100% convinced that I want to go into flood risk research. However, as I started researching, something clicked. I became fascinated by the complexities of flood risk. And before I knew it, I was completely drawn into the field. And then everything changed. So through my research, I started talking to people whose life had been devastated by floods, hearing their stories, their struggles, and even their resilience. So that really sparked something in me. I didn't just want to study flood risk, but I just wanted to help. I wanted to find a better way to support communities, to help people become more resilient, and also to make real impact. And I see flood risk management as an opportunity for me to be able to make such impact. So for me, what really started just as an academic pursuit has really become something much deeper. And flood risk research isn't just what I do, it's something I truly care about. And I'm committed to finding solutions that makes difference in people's life. So for me, it's more than just an academic pursuit. So it's something I'm really passionate about. So let's look at some growing threats, some facts about flooding. So the first thing is, if I was going to ask that, can you think of how many people is exposed to flooding? So about 1.8 billion. So that's quite massive. The world's population is 8 billion, and of all the 8 billion, 1.81 billion people is exposed to flood. Now, one thing about flood is of all the natural disasters you can think of, earthquake, hurricane, heat waves, drought, name it, flood is the most naturally occurring. It occurs almost every time, almost every day. We hear news of flood wreaking havoc on properties, on people. Plus also, not all floods are naturally occurring, and we've seen that from the short survey. Some floods are man-made, and you can't really blame that on nature. All right. So, for example, cases where we have dam failure or drainage system failing, probably maybe due to poor construction. So we can't really blame that on nature. So, but looking at the growing threat of flood, these are not just words on slides, right? So this is our reality. We're talking about climate change. We're having more extreme weather condition, right? So 1.8 billion people, that's nearly a quarter of the world's population. So this means that every time a major flood event occurs, nearly 1 in 4 people on Earth are at the risk of displacement, or it could be losing their property, or even it could be loss of life. So these numbers are really staggering, and they are not, it's not getting better. So I think some couple of weeks or months ago, in the UK, we used to say that in England, about 5.2 million properties are exposed to flood risk. But a couple of weeks ago, Professor David Proverbs told me that that number has increased. That it's no longer 5.2, but now it's over 6 million properties exposed to flooding. So we can see. So beside the number of people exposed, so another thing is the cost of damage is huge. So annual cost of damage is estimated to rise up to $1 trillion by 2015. So this is really massive. In fact, that $1 trillion is equivalent to some countries' GDP. So for instance, equivalent to, I think Indonesia GDP is equivalent to Netherlands GDP. And it's even more than Nigeria's GDP. So you can see how massive that is. Then another key thing is that so the frequency of flooding continue to increase. So one thing is, if you think floods are still rare events, I want you to rethink. All right. So major floods are now happening 3 times more often than they did in the 70s. So what was once an exceptional disaster is now becoming common. Climate change, rapid urbanization, environmental degradation, they are really playing a role in making floods more frequent and more severe. And in the years to come, then we're probably going to experience more frequent flooding. So the question is, what does this mean for us? It means we need to rethink how we build properties. We need to rethink where we live and also how we prepare. It means the decision we make today about resilience, about adaptation, about risk will determine the future of millions, if not billions of people. All right. So we're talking of, so when we talk about flood and then flood protection, I think the big question is, do we actually need protection against flood? And if we do need, how much protection do we? But for us to be able to answer that question, I think it depends entirely on the level of flood risk in a given area. For instance, the level of flood risk that the UK is exposed to might not be the same as the one that Nigeria is exposed to. But for us to be able to think of approach to managing flood, we need to understand what makes up flood risk. Now, if we look at the term risk, risk can mean different things to different people. But if we're going to look at it in the scientific world, we can break it down into two key components, and that's the likelihood of flood happening, the chances of it happening, what we call hazard, and then the impact it's going to have if it eventually happens. So which means essentially what makes flood risk is a combination of the probability of flood happening and its consequences. So, but this is something interesting to think about. Now, just because there is a flood doesn't mean it's going to translate automatically into a disaster. So, for instance, let's picture a big flood rushing through an area where no one lives. There's a flood, but no one lives there. So, which means there's no people, no buildings. In that kind of situation, nothing is at risk. All right. And so we can't call that a disaster. So because nothing is going to be affected. Now, on the flip side, even if a smaller flood in a community that is not ready for it, then that can cause huge damage. All right. So why the hazard flood itself may be the same, but the level of risk varies depending on how much is at stake. All right. So probably maybe now those living in the city and those living in the villages would experience different level of impact. So because of what is at stake, you expect the flood risk in cities to be higher than in the villages. All right. So, which means what really defines flood risk is not just about the water, all right, but is the presence of people, the presence of homes, businesses, critical infrastructures. And that's why I think understanding both hazard and its potential consequences is really important if we want to make any decision about flood protection. Because there's no point in investing in a place where the impact is not going to be that much. All right, so now that we've seen what makes up flood risk, so what about the evolution of flood risk management? Now, I think the evolution of flood risk management, for me, I think it starts with a love story with water. So you can see people trying to live with floods. Now, for as long as people have lived near water, then they have to figure out how to deal with floods. So instead of just fighting against flood, so many early civilizations they really found a smart way to live alongside water. And I'm going to give you some examples. So, for instance, in England, we have buildings like churches, like big cathedrals, which of course are huge investments. And these buildings were built long time ago. So what they did is they built this building on the highest ground just to keep them safe when water rises. So that's what I call living with flood. They understand that flood is probably going to happen, and then what they do is they keep critical, expensive infrastructure safe. So another thing is, as society grows, now people started settling in floodplains or flood-prone areas. And the reason why people were settling in flood-prone or floodplains is simply because the land were fertile for agriculture. So what they do is they measure the benefits against the impact. And so they felt like the benefit of using flood for farming, for agricultural purpose, outweighs the impact. And then people start utilizing floodplain. Then after the utilization of floodplain, then we have the era of people trying to control nature. And so during this time in history, the approach was all about keeping water away from people and property. And the purpose is just to control water for farming only, but of course to keep it away from people, to keep it away from property. However, as structures become bigger, then the need for centralized construction, the need for maintenance also grow. So we start building stuff like dams, levees, flood barriers to keep water away. And these dams, flood barriers, they are very, very expensive in terms of constructing or building them. It's expensive to construct and also expensive to maintain. So over the time, why these engineering solutions help in some ways, then we realize that they're also creating some new problems, something that makes flood even worse in the long run. And then which then move us to the era of reducing damages. And then finally, we have managing risk. So these are the 5 stages of flood risk management evolution. So it starts with people living with flood, then utilizing floodplains, controlling nature, and then which comes with damages, and then people start doing damage control. And then now what we have is, rather than doing damage control, can we start managing risk so that we can minimize the flood impact? Okay, so now let's think about flood risk using what I call the risk tolerance spectrum. So the risk tolerance spectrum classifies risk into 4 different categories. So the first one, we have zero risk. That means it is impossible for flood risk to happen. Of course, we know this is not possible. Regardless of how much structure we put in place, there's still going to be certain amount of flood happening. So that means the possibility of achieving zero flood risk is almost impossible. And then we have acceptable risk. So this is a situation whereby the benefits we get from flood outweighs the cost. And then we have tolerable risk. So these are situations whereby we've identified need for drastic improvements. So it could be improvements in drainage system, it could be improvements in flood warning, forecasting, and all those stuffs. So once there is identification of need for improvement, then we are at the level of tolerable risk. And then finally, we have the intolerable risk. Okay, now looking at the evolution of flood risk. So where are we now? Where are we now? So now that we know that floods will definitely happen, it's not a matter of if it's going to happen, but it's a matter of when. And also that we cannot totally prevent it. We can't stop it from happening. So therefore there's no such thing as zero flood risk. So all we need to do is we need to start thinking ahead. I think the wise thing to do is to prepare ourselves for when it happens, and then focus on how we can minimize the impact. We can't just sit around and wait for disaster to strike and then scramble around to fix things. So instead of doing damage control, resilience is all about finding a way to solve the problem before it happens. It simply means we're taking action in advance to protect our lives, to protect our properties, to protect our communities, and also to build a system that can bounce back when something goes wrong. All right. So it's all about being ready, not reacting too late. So it's not taking a reactive approach, but a proactive approach to managing flood. So that is where we are now. We are at the point of developing resilience. Now, resilience itself, I don't know what you understand by resilience, but I think I would like to find out. So I have another quick survey. So this is just one. So I just want to use this to find out your understanding of resilience. All right. So again, if you can scan the QR code and then okay. So the question is, can you describe resilience in a single word? So I've been talking about resilience as the concept that we now use in flood management. That is, there's no point waiting until disaster happens. So how can we prepare? What can we do to make sure that even when disaster happens, the impact is not going to be that much? We won't feel the impact that much. Okay, proactive, coping mechanism. And one thing about the concept of resilience is it's not something that is only applied to flood risk management, but also I think it's finding entrance into other fields like supply chain management. So now we hear talks about we need to build supply chain resilience to be able to cope with unexpected or uncertainty. For instance, bounce back better. That's triple B. I think I like that. Adapt. Okay. So that's interesting. How Let's go back to my slide. Survive. Okay. So now from that survey, we see adapt, we see bounce back better, we see coping. So all of these words, they are words that that have been used to mean resilience. All right. But looking at the word resilience, the concept of resilience, what is resilience? What is resilience? So I think when we first started talking about resilience in relation to flood risk, so it really marked the beginning of a new way of thinking about how we respond to disaster. All right. It's kind of like a new culture of how we approach flood risk and recovery. Now, over the time, this idea has found its way into both theory and also practice of flood risk reduction. But and it has brought up some various discussions and interventions. However, in applying the concept to real world situation is not always straightforward. It's a complex idea. It's not always easy to put into action. For instance, it's not unlike sustainability. Sustainability that has a standard way of defining. It has a standard way of a standard framework. So, for instance, sustainability relates to the triple bottom line of the economic aspect, the environment aspect, and then the social aspect, which of course is generally accepted way of defining sustainability. But when it comes to resilience, there's no consensus as to what resilience is, as to how we define resilience. It's a different field of studies have different way of viewing the concept of resilience. And of course, for us to be able to make a meaningful contribution, we need to be able to have a clear definition of what resilience is in the context of flood risk. And while I was doing my PhD, I did a lot of research around trying to understand what resilience is. I realized that those in psychology, they have a different view of resilience compared to we in engineering. All right. But the point is how do we come up to a common ground? Now, if you look at what I have here, again, this shows how complicated resilience is. There are over 70, more than 70 definitions of resilience in scientific literature. And one thing is, all of these definition fluctuates around two extremes: recovery and then adaptability. All right. So some people believe that resilience simply means our ability of a system to recover, to go back to its original state after undergoing some form of distortion. Why some other group of people believe that when a system goes through distortion, it will never go back to its original state. The system will have to learn, adjust, maybe probably reorganize, and then have a new form of reality. All right. So one thing I realized is I think most of our definition from engineering field usually tends towards recovery. All right. So for instance, when things get damaged, we want to try to repair it and then take it back to the normal level of normal state of functionality. All right. So in engineering, we tend to drift towards the recovery. Why for some of our friends in psychology, they tend towards adaptability. So all of this makes the concept of resilience, which of course is the current way of flood risk management. So all of this makes resilience complex. So why resilience? Well, we can't stop flood from happening. And trying to stop flood from happening is too expensive. Building dams, maintaining dams, building engineering structures. So we can't keep depending on that. And one of the problem is that if engineering structures fails, then the impact is even much greater. So, and that's why we lean towards more of an integrated approach of combining structural measures and then non-structural measures. All right, so this is one way we could apply flood resilience to our properties. All right. So how can we make our building more resilient to flood? So one of the ways we can make our building more resilient, particularly buildings that are located in flood risk areas, maybe river areas or coastal areas. One of the things we could do is, so this is one research that has been done in the UK, all right. And the research really started by identifying points of water entry into a building. So when flood happens, how can water get into the building? Now there are several ways. All right. I think I'm just going to skip this. So there are several ways through which water could enter into the building. So it could seep in through the door opening, it could seep in through openings in the windows, it could seep in through the toilets, through the pipes. So water could get into the building in a way. So once we'll identify how water can get into the building, then the next question is, how can we stop water getting in? So, and these are some of the measures that is being used. So the first one is floodgates. So floodgates is actually mounted on doors to prevent water from getting into the building. Then we also have air bricks and then air bricks cover. So the purpose of air bricks is to allow ventilations. And then we have toilet pan seals, non-return valve, sump pumps, rigged electrical socket, and then now also for properties in flood risk areas, it is not advisable to build bungalows. So for the property to be resilient, then it has to be a story building, maybe at least 2 or 3 story building. And the reason is because so that when flood happens, important items, vital items can be taken into the upper floor for safeguarding. All right. So these are some of the measures that have been developed to prevent water from getting into the building. However, it's not just about preventing water from entering into the building. Now you would realized that at some point, at some flood depth, we can't keep water outside. We have to allow water to get into the building. Otherwise, we're going to compromise the structural integrity of the building. All right. So, but the question is, at what level will the flood water rise to before then allowing the water to get into the building? Okay. I think some of the research said around 1 meter, 600 centimeter. So once the flood level gets to that point, then it's advisable to just open the door for the water to get in. All right. Now, it's not just about opening the door for water to get in, but of course, there should be measures in which, as the water gets in, then it goes out. And that is why stuff like the sump pump is needed in order to pump water out of the building. So because the impact of allowing water to get into the building is lesser compared to having a collapsed building. Okay, so before I end, I just want to explain some of the works that I've done around flood risk management. All right, so one of the very important key ones that I've done is done a work with, I think I did this with Professor David Proverbs and also Professor Ladokun. And so this one is one of the projects that we did with one of the key players in flood risk management in the UK, and that is the National Flood Forum. And really, our focus was to explore the flood risk management strategies used in the city of Birmingham. Now, for those of us who are familiar with Birmingham, Birmingham is the second most populous city in the UK, and of course, one of the fastest growing. And over the years, the city has really made some significant progress in transforming its reputation. However, one of the major challenges is when it comes to flooding. In fact, when it comes to flooding, the city of Birmingham has the second highest number of property at risk of surface water flooding. So, which means flooding to that city, it's a serious concern. All right. So, we did a research looking at how can we make the city of Birmingham a flood resilient city. And the goal of the research was to identify some of the challenges in their flood risk management strategies, and also to identify opportunities in managing flood risk. So these are some of the challenges that I just highlighted some of the challenges. So there's heavy reliance on hard engineering structures, and there's also a problem with regards to communication strategies. I think most of the narratives around that people are pushing out around flood risk is really negative. And I think we have natural tendency to always want to be resistant to negative news. All right. So because most of the narratives are negative, people tend to be passive. All right. So which means there is need to have a change in communication strategy, probably maybe to adopt some positive narrative around managing water, flooding, and then flood risk. And we came up with some recommendations, which is for them to kind of develop more precise way of forecasting surface water flooding. So of all the different type of flooding that the city is exposed to, river flooding, groundwater flooding. So one of the most difficult for them to forecast is surface water flooding. So which means there's a need to develop a robust way of forecasting surface water flooding. And also there's also need for them to protect other features of the city. So not just the residential properties, but of course, other type of property. And then finally, the need to develop a framework for assessing and quantifying the overall level of resilience within the city. So another key contribution I've made when it comes to research and flood risk management is with regards to property flood resilience. All right, so like what Professor David said, in my PhD research, so what I did was to develop a means of measuring flood resilience at individual property level. So in the UK have developed some measures to help property owners to be able to prepare for flooding once flooding happens. However, these measures are good, but we don't know how effective they are. So what I did was to pick up these measures and then develop a framework, or what I call a model, on how to measure the effectiveness of these measures. So another contribution is I didn't just focus on the building, but I also incorporate the human aspect, because of course buildings are lived in by humans. All right. So and I felt if you're trying to protect the building against the impact of flooding, then we also need to factor in the human that's going to be living in the building. How do we protect the human also? So so that's the model I developed, which of course incorporates the two key components. Okay, so I'm about to end. Now, how resilient are we to flood risk in Nigeria? So when we talk about flood resilience in Nigeria, I think the question isn't just about whether we experience flood. I'm sure there's a lot of flooding, a lot happening. But it's about how well we can handle them. So the question is, how resilient are we to flood risk? So one interesting thing is, I believe when it comes to the human aspect, our resilience is often stronger. In fact, compared to those in the Western world. Maybe in the Western world might be more resilient when it comes to the physical infrastructure. But when it comes to the human, I think we're more resilient. I've seen people who have lost a lot of their properties to flooding and still bounce back. So, but of course, I've had interaction with people in the UK who lost some of their properties to flooding, and it's still difficult for them to get over it. So in terms of the human factor, the human aspect, seems like we're doing not too bad in that aspect. Communities could come together to help each other to recover. People find ways to adapt, whether it's through traditional knowledge or it's through local warning systems, or it's through mouth-to-mouth announcing, or simply supporting one another in tough times. But of course, when it comes to the physical infrastructure, like our road, drainage systems, flood defenses, I think we still have a long way to go. Many areas lack the proper structures to prevent or reduce flood damage, which in a way make our recovery difficult. So while in Nigeria we've shown incredible strength and adaptability when it comes to the human aspect, but I think true flood resilience does not just require the human effort, but also require stronger investment in infrastructure, and also in planning to protect lives and livelihood. So the question is, what can we do? We as industrial engineering, students, graduates, lecturers, staffs, what can we do to help situations? I think what we can do is we can design similar measures to help properties in flood risk areas to be able to become more resilient. Now, I understand that the system in the UK might be different from the system in Nigeria. So simply, if we're designing a measure, it has to be designed in such a way that it adapts to Nigerian buildings, it adapts to the systems in Nigeria. All right. The idea is for us to be able to help homeowners develop some level of resilience to flood. So there are people who can afford some of these things, but of course have properties in flood risk areas. And when flooding happens, they have nowhere to go. All right. So, but of course we could help. We can do research around how can we design resilient infrastructure, community flood resilience, and the likes. Probably maybe we could also incorporate this in our degree programs. Maybe also encourage students to take projects that are flood risk management related, kind of, at least for them to start getting some sort of awareness, understanding about how vital flood risk management or flood risk research is. Thank you so much for listening. I think so. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Taiwo Adedeji, for that wonderful presentation. And of course, by now, I think many of us are now fully informed about what flooding is, how prone the world is becoming to flood. And of course, how much risk are you willing to accept? Now, there are a lot of highlights from what Dr. Taiwo Adedeji has exposed us to today, talking about the data. You can see that there is a lot of things going around, especially in the terms of the disaster and the magnitude of effects that flooding has brought to the world. Looking about flooding in every 100 people. That statistics is really, really alarming. And of course, how it has affected properties. Then he has been able to tell us much more about resilience, bouncing back, and every other aspects we need to know in terms of theoretical and practical mitigating strategies. And of course, he gave us insights from what he has done in terms of his research areas as well. I want to believe that was just a tip because of time. For some of us who are really interested in more research, we can look up for works that Dr. Taiwo Adedeji has done in this area. Thank you very much, Dr. Taiwo Adedeji, for this wonderful moment. So I think some of us have some questions we would like to ask. You may just take note of the questions while we or send it to the inbox. I'm going to take note of that. I'm going to give time for our chairperson's remark. Chairperson, you have about 3 minutes to give your remarks. Sir. Thank you very much, Engineer Mustafa.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, sir.
Okay, okay, yeah. I mean, excellent. Thanks to Dr. Dawa Didi for that very insightful lecture. A lot of reminder, and you can see, you know, how he held us engaged. You know, using different, you know, technique, collaborative and interactive pooling mechanism to, you know, get us started, you know, brought the audience together, you know, that rap attention was there based on, you know, his mode of delivery, and that's just that helped, that drove the message home. And particularly important, you know, question that he posed is, you know, do we just adapt or we just accept the status quo and hope for the best? And you know, that tied into, you know, the religious nature of our environment, where, you know, everyone is kind of like prayerful and hoping for the best. That seems to be the most adaptive mechanism that we have used to manage issues or topics like this. You know, as we come to close this enlightening lecture, I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to the speaker and all those who have contributed to the success of this event. Excellent. Thanks for the good work that you have done. Thanks for sharing your knowledge, providing insight to these issues, and to us being present. Let's continue to take the value from this discussion. It's not going to end here. You know, there's full body of knowledge scattered all over. But what's the value without taking action? You know, he shared so many things, and you can run it back home. When you do your site, you know, your site assessment, you know, like all of us, we buy land. We start from that, you know, individual. You know, when you are buying land, you know, are you doing the right search, the right research to ensure that you're not buying land in the floodplain, you know, places that are flood prone. And if you do, you know, what level, you know, are you considering some level of insurance? If you're outside of Nigeria, if you're in Nigeria, are you considering the level of risk that you're taking, you know, based on the value of the discussions like this that we've had? You know, please, as we, you know, let's reflect on today's discussion. Let's carry forward the lessons, you know, that we have learned, and, you know, put it to, and for some of us who have the privilege of working in, you know, planning organization, particularly for city, for local government, or for states, you know, people who are in government who also contribute to public policy, you know, let's take this message beyond this room and ensure that that value, you know, does count from the insight that has been shared today. Again, I extend heartfelt thanks to everyone for making this event a success, and you know, wishing you, you know, all the best, and looking forward to the next lecture series. Thank you Thank you for your time, and thank you to all our prof and our lecturers, organizing committee. That's
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Mustafa. Thank you very much. Well, like the chairperson has said to us, let's take the news beyond this room. Let's enlighten others. Let's try to, pass across the knowledge. There is a very low, the level of awareness in terms of flood is very, very low, and we need to increase this awareness. Of course, we can engage our neighbors, our parents, our families about the risks that are attached to flood, and of course, tips that we need to know and how to get prepared. I would like to call on the special guest of honor, one of the real experts in the United Kingdom, Professor David Proverbs, for his comments. Professor, you have the floor to give your comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alisa. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
You can hear me okay, great. No, that was an inspiring and an insightful presentation from Tayo. Really, really enlightening, and touched on, many of the issues that we have to face in this area. So I hope everybody's enjoyed and really found that an informative session, because even from my perspective, having spent a lot of time in this area for the last 25-30 years, I found that really enlightening discussion, and again the engagement that Tayo's fostered through that presentation, absolutely really useful, really engaging. My reflections are that this is a big issue across the planet, not only in Nigeria, not only in the UK where I'm based, across the whole of the globe. This is a massive issue for us. Every week we see different examples, don't we, of these kind of crises and disasters, as we term it, for these that's created by these flooding issues. So, and I say, even in the UK, where we've, you think we've done a lot of investment in the infrastructure. I guess from a lot of colleagues involved in the discussions today, from an engineering perspective, a lot of understanding, a lot of sophistication. We can really, really sort of recognize the contribution the engineering disciplines made to this. But I think I'll go back to what I said earlier. I think, importantly, I think this is a multidisciplinary challenge for us to really contend with, and this concept of resilience. It's not an. I think it was interesting when Tayo asked that question. Can you describe what resilience means? It's a very difficult term to explain, isn't it? A very difficult term to explain, but I think that is the future. Because we can't continue to build defenses in a way that's sustainable, because if they fail, it's catastrophic, it's disasters. How can we build for the future, given a changing climate, given the river levels, the flood risks are going to continue to improve? So it really is, I think, this future bound resilience. And I think what Tayo's brought to light through these discussions today is, an acceptance, a recognition that the risks are increasing, but can we adopt this concept of resilience towards making us able to cope, individually, collectively, and nationally, and globally, I guess, to be able to cope with these kind of challenges. So I hope everybody's really inspired by Tayo's contributions. I thank Tayo for really an inspiring contribution and a really engaging contribution. I think a thought-provoking presentation really got me thinking, some of the questions Tayo was posing to us. So again, really appreciate the opportunity to support this event this evening, and I hope there's some, it's fostered lots of questions from colleagues, because I think we need to question, we need to challenge, we need to find some new ways of dealing with these challenges going forward, because the creation of just pure physical defence isn't clearly going to be the main route of solution. So that's great. Obviously, I hope that's sufficient, and happy to answer any, or engage in the discussions that proceed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Then goodwill message will allow Professor Oluleye to give his goodwill message. Professor Ayodeji Oluleye. Hello, Prof. Okay. While we are waiting for Professor Oluleye, can we have Dr. Okunribido a short goodwill message?
Yeah, hello. I think I just got unmuted.
Oh, sorry.
It's been a pleasure to listen to Taiwo, and I'm very happy that you've made a success of your time out in the UK. There was no time in my mind that you make it. I remember the time you shared a desk with me in my office, and it was quite a pleasure also learning from you the little ways you got very difficult things done, and I can only wish you well. Well, I learned a couple of things tonight, building resilience, and I think the problem remains, and there are quite a number of open problems. You've kind of thrown some light, and I think this is a challenge to some of our students who would like to take up this challenge of looking at some of the open problems, knowing fully well that Nigeria is a flood-prone, not city now, but nation. In fact, one of the worst cases I had was when one of my daughters was going for an exam around the Lokoja area, and there was a serious flood. I think some water released from Cameroon. So when she told me she was on a canoe, I couldn't believe it. But we thank God that things were managed very well. So I wish you all the best. And then I think the department will also try to take up the challenge as an organizational challenge now, and try to influence the research agenda in the university. And thanks to Professor Proverbs, nice seeing you again. If I remember well, we met in UE years back, and to our chairman too, Engineer Mustafa, we thank you so very much. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, Professor Oluleye. Dr. Okunribido, if you are available, just a short goodwill message from you, sir.
Right, thank you very much for this. I greet you all. I say greetings to the lecturer. I think when he was about to start his research, when he was about to travel to the UK, I think that's when we met. And he did show himself to be a very, very energetic person who had a desire to really pursue research. It's good to know that you are finished and you are you're establishing yourself in the field. It has opened my eyes very much. I must say, I used to be one of the lecturers in the department. I also left after a while to pursue further studies to start with. I did my PhD and I stayed behind, but I reestablished with the department on a visiting level. So I'm very, very glad that things are moving on in this series, and we hope we'll get more insights from other experts in the field. Thank you very much for making yourself available, Dr. Adedeji, and we continue to grow and progress in your career in the field. And bye for now.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone who has participated. If you would like to give your good message, you can just send me a message. We would like to take a few questions and answers. I've seen Marufu Babatunde Jenyo's hands up. Marufu Babatunde Jenyo, can you ask your question? Then to our guest lecturer, Dr. Taiwo Adedeji, we have some questions in the chat. A question, you can quickly note this by John Olulade. He says, a place like Victoria Highland, occupied by the rich, has perennial flooding. What do you think authority can help? I think he wanted to mean, how do you think authority can help since individuals can't solve the problem? But by the way, in the meantime, while you are still working on that question, let's have Marufu Babatunde Jenyo. Just a minute, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate the guest speaker for a wonderful lecture that he has given us. While he was delivering the lecture, I just picked one area. I want to find out if he's actually taking that place to be very important. He made mention of, when he was talking about the risk area, that a place where you don't have infrastructure and no human is living there, that if there is flooding there, there's no disaster. I want to believe that it's just talking about disaster in terms of human and infrastructure. But I look at it from this angle that such flooding can wash away topsoils. So there's disaster to our land in terms of farming and some other things, where the topsoils will be washed away and may not be good for agriculture. That's just my the area I want to point out. Thank you very much for the wonderful lecture.
Thank you, sir. Guest lecturer, Dr. Adedeji.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think when I was trying to explain what flood risk is, so looking at the component that makes up flood risk, the probability of flood happening, and then the impact. So what really empowers, what substantiates flood risk really is the impact. So if there's going to be impact, not only to people, to building, but if it's going to impact the farmland, the soil, then it's a risk. So in that sense, it's a risk, and then of course it's going to be a disaster. Maybe not directly to humans, but of course indirectly as a secondary kind of impact, because it's going to impact the farmland, it's going to impact the soil, and then it's going to impact crops production, which ultimately comes back to human. So yeah, totally agree. But so for the question in the chat, so a place like Victoria Island occupied by the rich has perennial flooding. What do you think authority can help, since individuals can't solve the problem? So I think we can't really keep relying on government to help us solve our problems. So while we understand that government have the responsibilities to protect our cities, but I think, like for instance, in the UK, we have measures which are not too expensive, like the property flood resilience measures. there are stuffs that people can really afford. So, but again, that also push the responsibility back to we engineers to design, to investigate our properties, particularly those ones in flood risk areas, and then look at, is there a way we could redesign those properties to become resilient to flooding? Do we need some sort of retrofit that we can put in those buildings? It's quite understandable we can't prevent flood from happening, but what can we do to minimize the impact? How can we prevent water from seeping in through doors, windows? Can we design floodgates that can be temporarily mounted on doorposts to prevent water from entering into the building? And I'm sure if we design stuff like that, it's not going to come at huge cost. It's something that people can buy. So we can come up with innovative ideas and then we sell it to people and then we make some profit out of it. So we can't keep relying on, we can leave the big things like flood, like dams, levies for the government, but of course, we need to take responsibility. In the UK, it's the responsibility of property owners to make sure that you safeguard your property from flooding. And yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Taiwo. Of course, we still have a lot of our lecturers on the line. And of course, I would like to acknowledge their presence. Dr. Mojisola Bolaniwa, the past head of department. Dr. Adekunle Kolawole also, a former head of the department. Dr. Hai Idem, the subdean of the faculty, the subdean undergraduates of the Faculty of Technology, and other students, especially the final year students who are about to graduate, also who are here, and the master students. We really, really appreciate your presence here. I would like to say this: we all need to be prepared and we all need to be informed about flooding. And I want to believe we have learned one or two things today that we can carry on in our day-to-day life. And of course, we are better informed now. So I'm going to give opportunity to our guest speaker to give his final remarks shortly before we give closing remarks and vote of thanks. Thank you.
Okay. I want to use this opportunity to thank the department for giving me this opportunity to come and give this lecture. And of course, I do not take this for granted. For me, it's a really big opportunity for me to come back to where everything began, where everything started from. And thank you so much, Professor Oluleye. Good to see you. I still reminisce on those memories when I was acting as a research assistant to you. So a lot of experience, a lot of things that I took with me to the UK, which of course really valuable, which also help in the journey to become who I am now. And I also want to thank all the member of staff from the head of department, engineer, Dr. Okunribido, Dr. Bolariwa, and everyone. And also, I also want to say thank you to the students for coming on for this lecture. And also, I also see some of my class members while I was in doing my program. So like AB1, AY, EMC, and then Fatima. Thank you so much. And then my very good friend, the moderator. So hopefully we'll get to see very soon. Hopefully. Thank you so much. And
all right, thank you very much. Everybody on this platform is very important to us, and we really appreciate your coming. Before the vote of thanks will be given by our very own Oladunni Okwade, what we have next is going to be another exciting title, The Role of Energy Economics in Advancing the Petroleum Sector Towards Net Zero carbon, I think. So while we are looking forward to that, Oladunni Okwade, give us vote of thanks. Shortly, please. I would like to also acknowledge some of the classmates and of Taiwo who are here, and especially our very own head of department, Professor Victor Oladokun. Pardon me, Prof, please, would you like to give your goodwill message before we have the closing, vote of thanks? Professor Victor Oladokun.
Let me see if I can unmute myself.
Okay, you are there.
Okay.
You are there.
I think I can unmute.
You are there.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Well, I just want to appreciate everybody for being part of this occasion. We are very grateful to the guest lecturer, and we are grateful to all our VIPs, Professor Proverbs, Engineer Olanipekun, who has been a friend of the department, and everybody. We appreciate you. We look forward to seeing you again during our 31st edition. So, God bless you all. Thank you.
So, Oladunni Okwade.
All right, thank you. On behalf of IPA Engagement Committee, I would like to appreciate our special guest of honor, our chairperson. And also I would like to make some reflection about them. First of all, I would like to appreciate the chairperson in person of Engineer Kemi Mustafa. I know he's a friend to the department, married to one of our alumnus who took the citation today. We appreciate you. Also, I thank our special guest of honor, Professor David Proverbs. Professor David Proverbs is very passionate about flood risk management. When we met in Birmingham City University and I explained my research to him, his response was, what happens to vaccination work system when there is flood? You know, everything about the discussion was tailored towards his own interest. We appreciate you. We appreciate your support. Also to our guest of honor, Engineer Dr. Isaac Olanipekun. We appreciate you for giving the goodwill message, and we appreciate you also for the support we have received from you as a department. Also, I would like to appreciate you. You know, Engineer Olanipekun and his wife of blessed memory hosted myself, Sheyi, and Taiwo in their house in the UK. And special thanks to her guest lecturer today, Dr. Taiwo Hadedeji, for a brilliant presentation. And I also like to appreciate Taiwo. You know, Taiwo saved me the day I arrived Birmingham from freezing. I was not with a jacket. And He also made my stay in Birmingham comfortable. Thank you so much for. And I would also like to appreciate lecturers, alumni, and students of industrial and production engineering, and also all our fathers in the department. They've mentioned their names. And I would also like to appreciate everyone on this call for your patience and attention. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. See you on the 31st series, where we'll be discussing another interesting title. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, everyone. And this brings us to the closing of the 38th lecture series. Good night. Bye.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.